Hello, this is Charlie. Welcome back. We are now moving on to page 1 in our album, which is going to be this page right here. So I have already pre-cut my pages with the exception of one. Everything else is already inked and ready to go. So we are going to start with you cutting this piece, and it's going to measure 9 3/8 across by 9 7/8 in its height. When I make these albums, I always provide myself with a 5/8 gusset because I build up pages and they end up being little books inside the album. So when that happens, you've got to have room in order to absorb the 1/4 inch gusset we're going to create, which is going to take up this room, and have this still turn over and lay down along the 5/8 gusset line. I hope that makes sense. If you were to cut this from side to side, you're going to have your 1/4 inch buildup bump right into that 5/8 inch gusset. And then what's going to happen is the page is going to stand up like this, and then you're going to try to fold it over, and you're going to find that it's going to be doing a lot of buckling. So when I do my albums, I come right up to this edge here, and I'll line it up, I'll cut it, but I'm going to leave anywhere from a 1/4 inch to 3/8 on this side. Now, when we're done, if that bothers you that that's there, you can cut this is going to be a 3/8 gap. You can cut a 1/4 inch strip from your scraps and fill that in. Because what we'll also be doing at the end when we're all done is from our scraps, we will find what we need to cut a 1/2 inch strip to fill this in. So you could conceivably cut them from the same piece of paper so that they would match. Just keep in mind that the thickness of this paper, you don't get too close to this edge so that you end up binding up on it because there's extra layer there that wasn't anticipated. So just keep that in mind, but that's one way to get rid of all this white, because we will be doing this. But if this doesn't bother you, and it never has with me, because by the time you do the buildup, you really don't see too much of that. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please reach out and ask questions. Okay, so again, this piece, and it will be the same measurement throughout. You will always cut this base pattern paper at 9 3/8 by 9 7/8. That will be a permanent measurement throughout. Now, I like to go to my scraps a lot when I'm building up an album, because you've got to do something with them. So there should be, when we're done with cutting everything, a scrap of cardstock that's going to measure roughly 3 5/8 by 9 3/8. So what we're going to be doing is creating a large bottom pocket. Then let me get these papers out of there. On this side, you're going to cut a sheet of your cardstock, because you're going to make two. You're going to cut one that's 11 inches long by 9 and, did I just do that wrong? Yeah, by 9 7/8. Gosh, I'm glad I caught that. So it's going to be 11 inches across by 9 7/8 tall. Then that 11-inch piece, you are going to, where'd it go? Hold on. You are going to cut it in half. This should be right at 5.5 inches. Cut it in half. Each piece you will then score at 1/2 and at 3/4. Both of these. These are going to be your flaps here for the front of the album. Okay? Then for the inside of each one of these, you're going to cut one that measures just a hair shy. I think it ended up being 5 3/16 by the 9 7/8. And this one I cut it in at 5 1/8. I'm not sure if I just shortened it this way, but these were from my scraps that I had. If you don't have these scraps, then that's what you're going to need to cut. You're going to score each one of these at 1/2 inch. Okay? This is going to get taped and mounted just to the inside on both these pages. Does that make sense? I'm going to tape that down. We're going to tape it, and it's going to tape just to the inside. Oh, I think I need to trim that just a tad. Yep, I do. I need to trim that about 1/8. That's why this one's wider. I didn't pay attention to my measurements. So let's just take 1/8 off that. All right, now you're going to score it 1/2, and with this 5/8, or excuse me, this 1/4 inch gusset, as you start to add things in here and build this up, you're going to have room for expansion. So when I'm building my pages, I like to have anywhere from 1/8 to a 1/4 inch gusset to help take up the buildup from within the album. And then from your A4 collection, I fussy cut this out and then mounted it on white cardstock. I have inked all my edges. Before I get too far ahead of myself, I'm using Tim Holtz Distress Ink Walnut Stain. You can use whatever compatible ink you prefer, but this is the color I'm using. So I've inked these edges on everything. And then I'm missing a card. It's here somewhere. And then I cut out 3 cards, inked their edges. And you can cut whatever cards you want. Now, this is becoming a mystery. I don't know where it went. Well, it's going in after the fact, so I'll run into it someplace. It seems like I always do this. I lose something. Oh, that's because I used it. I used it as the marker for the page in the album so it would stand out more. So there it is. All right. So let's go ahead and let's build the page. Let's get our tape on, and then we'll start adding the paper. Now, I will use 3/8. I never use glue on these hinges because glue has a tendency to spread, and I don't want that glue going where it doesn't belong. So I will always use tape in order to get this done. So we're gonna come in here. And if you're wondering what this little pink thing is, it's just a fingertip. I found it on Amazon. I have used so much tape over the years that I've actually dried the oils out in my fingertip. I mean, I started making albums 10 years ago, but they're very dry. So I try to protect it by using a fingertip. They didn't cost very much, and they're pretty flexible, really. Now, because this is a deeper pocket, usually I line these with 1/4" tape, but because it's a deeper pocket, I want a little stronger hold, so I'm going to go ahead and use 3/8" tape. Get this on there. This is my second album that I have been asked to make for Scrap and Create. Kind of excited and nervous. The first one I had a lot of video placement errors, so if you saw it, I wholeheartedly apologize. Okay, so the first thing I want to do, we got to burnish. We want that tape down on this surface pretty strong. And we want to get out any and all air pockets that could be under that tape. Getting that air in there is what's going to dry that tape out, and that's what leads to, in my opinion, album failures. So you want to make sure that you get that burnish down there pretty good. So I'm going to match up here to this corner, line it up, come in here, lay it down, and burnish. Now I want to take these pages that have a 1/2" fold on them, burnish, get the crinkles out, get the air out, make sure I've got a nice burnished edge here, because we're going to come just to the inside and we're going to tape that down. So I'm going to start here at the corner, come down, eyeball it as even as I can get it, and then I'm going to burnish. And then I will repeat that process on this side. Snug it right up to that corner. Eyeball it right along that line. And we're done. I'm not going to erase the pencil. It's getting covered up, so just kind of ignore that. Now, each one of these pages, when you go to mount this, you've got these 2 score lines. You're going to come up to the score line that's the closest to the tape. Okay? There will be other occasions when we're doing a big build that you would come up to this first score line, but we're not doing that. We're going to come right up, fold this over, and burnish. And then I want you to pull back so that you've got your gusset standing up nice and tall. Okay? I always find it easier to turn things over. So then we're going to do the same thing, but I'm going to burnish this first because I haven't. Come right up to that score line, fold it over, crease, burnish, and then we're going to push the paper back. Oh, I've got a little bit of a tag right down there. Oh, that's what they give you scissors for. Okay, there we go. So then this is going to open up when we're all done like this. So it's going to be a big page. Now, there is a paper that looks like this, and it has winter kept us warm, covering the earth in forgetful snow. So this piece of paper is one large piece, and I wanted to center it in here, but I wanted as much of the images as I could. So find this piece, and then I want you to make the following notes. Across the bottom, you are going to cut a 1/2 inch off the bottom. Okay? This is the right side. You're going to come in and you're going to cut 1 1/8 off the right side. This is the top of the paper, and you're going to cut 1 7/8, or you're going to cut it to fit. It just depends upon how your trimmer is. And then the last piece, which is the left side, you're going to come in and cut 1 5/8 in, and when you're done, this is what you should have left. Okay? Does that make sense? Now, I have already inked mine. I thought about putting an element on here, but I couldn't find anything that would blend. So we're going to use, because I was going to use that as my closure, but we're going to use this instead. Now, because of the thickness of this paper, because I'm using 100-pound cardstock, it's thick, it's heavy. By the time you start adding layers of paper, it gets even thicker and it gets even heavier. So I will be using 2 magnets to help with the closure on this. So I'll actually go on this end because we want this to close here. And I will place the opposing magnet on the back side. So it doesn't really matter where you put them. It's just that in my experience making these, one magnet just doesn't hold all this paper in there. And I want you to have a nice clean album that it's going to close and stay closed for you. Okay, I'm just randomly kind of placing them on here. I'm going to close that. Now, all the supplies here, the tape, the magnets, the paper, the store has 100-pound weight cardstock, which would be fine, but you're really going to want a couple of sheets of 65-pound weight cardstock for the wrapping of that outside album. Okay, so let's get a couple of these. I'm going to let this kind of find it. There we go. And I'm going to tape them in place. And now I'm going to do the same thing over here on this side. I'm going to put one there. We're going to put one here. Again, I'm just randomly placing them. I don't want to get them too close to this edge because I want that paper to go down and there not be an issue. Now see how nice and snug that ends up being when these are you can see I offset them completely differently, but it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to see these. Okay. Nice and clean, nice and snug. And when you open them, really the only magnet set that you're going to feel a little bit of resistance on the pull are the top ones if you're pulling off the bottom. So if you're pulling off at the top, you're going to feel the resistance off the one on the bottom. Does that make sense? It's going to be a little hard to get in here and go like this to equal resistance. I'm specifying that because I don't want you to freak out that one set of magnets isn't working any better than the other set. Okay, so now I am, because of the size of the paper, I am going to use 1/4-inch tape. I love this side. Oh, I really hated cutting into it. I wanted to use it. But I'm going to use 1/4-inch tape because I personally find that by the time I get done running glue over everything, it's half of it's dried before I can get it down on the cardstock. So I provided the link in the description for all of the supplies. The only thing that is not available, and it was an optional use, is the lace when we did the album build itself. I have a couple of other albums that they want me to make that are wedding albums. Those will be coming up pretty soon, and I will be using lace on those. So I will probably run to Joann's, take the paper collection with me when I get it, and do a best match. Wedding album, I don't think can be a wedding album without lace. Anyway, enough said about that. That's in the future. Now, this album, as I stated in a previous video, I don't think this has to be limited to just a winter theme like you've gone to the Alps or something, or to Tahoe and did any skiing and took a lot of photos. I think this could adapt very well to a winter wedding. I really do. Especially if you've got somebody who is kind of outdoorsy. They chose a winter wedding for a reason. Now I took the center one off first because I want to come in here and do a slightly dry placement. And then I'm going to Oh, shoot. Put that on upside down. My friend. In fact, sometimes I refer to it as my girlfriend. Dries fairly quickly. Now we'll come back in here. We'll set placement. Press. Oh, that glue, that tape is not quite dry, but we just fixed that. There we go. And I hope you know if you're building along, you can pause the video to catch up or go back and look at something again. I don't try purposely to make long videos because I think it's, for me sometimes, it's like, okay, where was that? How deep into the video was it? So I think shorter videos, if possible, help with that. That's why I pre-cut everything. I don't think you need to watch me pre-cut stuff, if that makes any sense. Okay, we're gonna come in here. Oh my goodness, I'm trying to make a personal donation. Well, I have a hair. There we go. Not sure how I did that. Goodness sakes. And get this off. If I wanted to be really crafty, I don't know how the audience is yet. I haven't gotten a feel for everyone as to how much cutting that you guys like to do, but these pieces right here, I would love nothing more than to go in, trim these out, back them on foam squares, and pop these up so that there was some depth to this page. But I opted not to do that because, like I said, I don't know if that's something that you guys want to do. Now, if you're previewing this video and you've seen this as it's done, if you want to go in and just cut these out, ink these edges, put 2 foam squares on these so that they're pretty sturdy. This one will probably take 3, and then place them right back into place. I think that would just add an extra element to this. Okay. So on the inside, there are 2 sheets in your paper pad that look like this. Okay? And you're going to cut from each sheet a piece that is going to fit on both of these pages. I need to make sure I've got the right piece on each one. And then when you go to the inside, you can continue to carry that theme, or you can do the reverse, which I think is really pretty. And then this piece that is a leftover because we cut this. We're going to cut this piece. We're going to ink the edges. I don't like wasting paper, so we're going to ink these. We're going to cut it to fit, and you're going to see that there's a gap down here. That's okay, because what we're going to do is we're going to create a pocket on both of these that's going to hide this gap down here. Does that make sense? So what I want to do first, so that I've got all this ready to go, is I'm going to come in here. I'm going to come right up to that fold line, and I'm going to come just to the inside of that score line. And then I'm going to trim it. So there's that piece. I've got to ink the edges, so I'm not done with that piece yet. And then I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to come just inside that score line. Let me pull it down a little bit so I can see where I'm at. Just inside the score line, and then I'm going to come right up to this fold. Put it on my trimmer and make it go away. Now, when we cut all this, look at all the scraps that we have. So we can use either, it depends upon what direction these were cut. So like this piece here, this is going to go right here. This is going to go right here. We're going to cut a piece of white cardstock that will cut to fit, and you can use this side so there's a flow, or you can use this side so you have some striking beauty. Whatever works for you. You also have a lot of trim. The music notes aren't going in the right direction on that piece, but it is on this piece, and it is the right height, and there's more than enough to do both sides. And I think that's what I'm going to do, so then I'm tying into this piece. Again, I like to go to my scraps as much as possible, minimize the paper waste. All right, so this piece I will use some glue on. I want to get that in there before I toss it in the scrap pile. I have been known to do that. Oops. Excuse me, I am so sorry. I just filled my glue bottle. It decided to let me know that, so let's not press too hard. Silly girl. Okay. And brush. Get all that on there. And I will come in here, line that and burnish. And we're going to ink again. I like to give contrast. Just to put a white against white, it just doesn't speak to character to me. So I'm always inking edges. I like to get rid of that white core in there as well. I'm going to sneak right up to that. Oops, oops, oops. Get over there a little bit more. I almost caught myself. Come off of there. I got too close to that edge, and that glue dries pretty quick. Now you can see why I don't use it on bigger pieces. All right, so I need to make sure that I have the right pieces going with the right pieces. So we're going to go ahead and put this one down. Just come right up to this edge, space it top and bottom, and there we go. And then, is this the piece that will go in here? No. That's too wide. Well, it looks like I need to do some trimming. Make sure here before I go whacking away. So this piece will sit here. I've got to trim these down. Oh, I forgot to go around those with some extra glue. And I'm going to sneak in here because it's lifting and put that extra glue. There we go. Okay, now let's see what I need to do here. I just need to, well, actually this is a pretty decent fit right here. I don't like big, wide edges. I think my preference. I think it distracts your eye pulls to it rather than to the paper. So if you have a larger trim up here, then the eye pulls there instead of the paper. So I try to get these as snug as I can with just a little bit of white showing. I don't know if that matters to anybody, but I thought I would share. Okay, and now this piece, I think is the piece I need to trim. Yep. So I'm just going to snuggle right up to, I got to trim it top and bottom. I'm going to take a little off the top. And I use different trimmers for different situations, like this tiny fine line. I don't want to drag out my big trimmer. This is my well-loved go-to trimmer. Kind of gussy up the edges a little bit. And let's see if I can glue this down there and in the right spot. Okay. Make sure the pattern's going the right way. That's always helpful. Unlike using tape, once glue's down, it's down. All right, now we are going to go to our scraps, because you should have plenty, and we're going to cut. I want to find the tallest one that there is, because I want to make sure I can cover this. But then this piece I need to make sure is, oh, look at that. That is almost a perfect fit. Goodness sakes. Okay. We're going to line this just to the inside of that fold, because we've got to give room for it to fold over. Line it up across the bottom. And you're going to want to stay away from this gusset. So you're going to come right to the end of the paper, kind of in that spot in between, because you've got to allow for the build-up and be able to fold those pages over. Does that make sense? Okay. There's one. Line it up just inside that fold line. Come in here and cut. Now I may end up doing a little bit of trimming when I get this all figured out here. What I do not want, let me get this more set. What I do not want is this design paper to go beyond the design paper that's already on there. I just don't think it looks good if you're coming clear into here with this design. So again, I'm going to match this up here very carefully, and I'm going to trim off a little hair here. Not much. And see, now you can see how these two ends are even. Let's get rid of my pencil marks. Okay, now I'm going to take this piece. I love this. I definitely want that in there. And I'm going to come along, create that nice thin border. I'm going to trim it right there, and I'm going to trim it right there. Okay. Glue it down there. Oh, darn. I forgot to trim this off the bottom. So I'm going to have to turn it upside down. Boy, I blew that, didn't I? Pickles. Boy, I blew that. No, I gotta trim it some more. But now that the glue's dry, stuff dries so fast. Hope you didn't make the same mistake I did. Okay, that'll work. I could have trimmed off some more, but I'm not going to mess with it anymore. Okay, I'm going to cross the bottom. This is 1/4 inch score tape. I don't have much surface to tape over. Oh, it's pulling on my skin. So I'm going to use 1/4 inch. Now we're going to line right up to that. Got tape hanging out there. Make sure it's flush to the bottom and down. And then we're going to do the same over here. I'm going to fix my cut. Hope my head's not away. And then I'm going to come in here. Oh, I want this end where the snowflake is. So I'm going to come here, line this up. I'm going to take that off the top and we're going to trim it right there. I just realized something. Couldn't quite figure out why I was having a hard time seeing things. Well, I forgot to open up my other light. So I have a question I'm going to ask here. Do you think anyone will notice that I put that piece on upside down? Just such a dingbat. I'll get these on there. And I'm going to come right back in here, line it up, square it up across the bottom, and down. Okay, so you kind of have a flow pattern going here. Now, this piece, I've mounted it on those 3D foam squares. I inked the edge when I cut it out, mounted it on the thick white cardstock. And you know, for as long as I've been doing this, I learned something today. That instead of using these, I could be using leftover chipboard. It was like one of those palm on forehead moments. Can you believe that? But I've already got it down. I'll remember that on the next one. Okay. Oh, I just realized something. Oh, it worked. Whew. There is these two magnets underneath there, but that means it's only the top one gripping. I have to change my thought on this. I really wanted that to be lifted because there's certainly room because of the gusset that we built, but the foam squares are creating an extra barrier that the magnets are not able to get through. So I am going to have to remove them all. This is such a bummer. I did not think that part through. And once I've taken them off, I can't reuse them. It's not worth the trouble. Now, what would have solved this was if I'd had thought about it, I would have placed this magnet up higher. But no worries, I can still use the piece, it just won't be elevated. So let's do this. Let's put this down. Oh yeah, see, it's grabbing now. And we're just going to glue it in place. I still want to use the piece. Okay. Now, with this, and you do not have to use them, but I got a cute little bag of silver trinkets. And in this is a Christmas tree style charm that I'm going to put right there. It's going to take glossy accents to adhere it there. So I'm going to kind of goober up the underside of this. And I'm just going to place it right there. Okay. Now, we still have these guys here. What I want to do is, because this is a lot. It's beautiful, but it's a lot. It's busy. I want to take these I'm feeling for the magnet. It's right there. So I think I'll take these and I'll put them to this inside. I don't want it to continue to have to compete. So I'm going to glue these together, add tape to a length and a width, and we're going to make little tucks to help break up the busyness. Make sure I get the right. God, I just hate that feeling. Okay, so I'm going to just come in about 1/4 of an inch from the side and from the bottom, just eyeballing it. And that magnet's right there, so it's not going to be interfering. There's not going to be an extra layer. But what you end up with is a nice little tuck that you can put things in, and you still have a spot to put a journaling tag or a photo up here on the top. Now, I'm trying to decide if I want to go with the same issue on this side. I want to stay away from that magnet. Do I want to go with the little bit bigger one? Or do I want to go with the one that says, winter is not a season, it is a celebration? I think I like that. Sorry for the hesitation there, I had to make sure. Oh, past it. Now it's stuck to me. Okay, so because this is where the magnet is, I want this to go right here. So I want the tape on this side. When I get down to the end of this roll, it likes to unravel. It's kind of frustrating. Okay, and again, coming in about a 1/4 inch, up a 1/4 inch. I mean, you can bring it in like this if you want, but I think it adds a little bit of character and some depth if you just offset it a little bit. Now this piece that I have left over, did I ink the edges on that guy? Yeah, I did. I am going to actually put him in here to help kind of break some of this up a little bit. Center him on there really good. Burnish. And I'm just going to tuck him up here in this corner. I'm just doing a complete glue down. There's no reason for there to be a tuck that high. So 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, glue it down. Okay, so this is your page. Flaps, flaps, 2 pockets, lots of room for photos. This is light enough here that with a dark blue or a black pen, you can come in here and you can do journaling. Tell your story. These really should be keepsakes and heirlooms going down through the ages. When my mom passed, it's been 8 years ago now, I was really mad at myself because I never sat down and went over all the photos with her. I was just too busy and missed an opportunity to identify family members. And my family's old enough, most of them have all passed on now. There isn't anybody for me to go to. And so I just have a box of photos. Isn't that sad? Now, if I'd taken the time, I could have filled those photos with stories and dates and birthdays and names and all kinds of stuff. Now what I'm doing is I'm using the 5/8 inch tape and I'm creating a framework around the back of this page. I use a wider tape back here because it's got all this weight, length and height that it's got to cover. And then I'm going to come in here. I don't want to waste the 1/2 inch. We're going to come in here with the 3/8 and we're going to create some additional support right through the middle. Burnish, burnish, burnish. Air pockets, get that tape down on this paper really good. Okay, so time to start picking. I'm going to take these off first. I'll come at the underside and take those off, but I want to get it centered on here before I do anything. So remember, We are not coming up against the gusset. We are coming up against this edge. And if it helps, take a piece of paper so you can see where that edge is. Make sure that you're, as best as you can, take your gusseted end and press it right up there. Are you even top to bottom? Gently lay it down so it doesn't move on you. And then we're going to burnish down what we've taken the tape off of. And then I'm going to come in here and take the tape off. Come in here, reach in here. Now, if you're skilled at messing with tape and you want to take it all off and put it down, by all means, you go for it. I don't trust myself, so I will always do it in baby steps. Yes, I have undo, but it takes less undo to remove a little bit of tape than it is to take undo and try to remove all this tape. Now we're going to come in here and we're just going to burnish really firm all across this, because I want that tape down there good and solid. And now it gives us a chance to burnish all the tape pieces in the middle and the tape over the magnets. Okay, look at that. You see what I mean by there isn't that much showing by the time you put this in place. What you're focusing on is this gusset, built up gusset. Now, when I go to turn this page, this is going to fill up in here on the fold so that this lays down as easy as possible. Does that make sense? I could have cut that page a little bit shorter because this cardstock is quite thick and it ate up a little bit more than I wanted it to, but it will work. But that is page 1. We're done. Please come back to see page 2.